Xiao Mei. In other words, Wang Muzhen of Menjian County is the descendant of the Guanwan family. On a trip to Jiangsu and Zhejiang, he met an elderly woman sitting on the side of the road crying. Wang asked the old woman why she was crying, and she said, "My dead husband left only one child. And now that the child has committed the crime of death, who can find a way to save him?" Ms. Wang was so generous that she wrote down her child's name, took out all the money he had, went around and bailed the child out. After the boy was released from prison, Wang Muzhen was said to have saved his life. Unable to understand what was going on, she went to the hotel to visit Wang Muzhen. On the one hand, Wang Muzhen was asked to understand. On the other hand, she was thankful, asked about it at the hotel. Ms. Ong said, "There's no reason. Just pity your mother is an old man." The child, terrified, said, "My mother has been dead for years." Wang thinks it's weird too. At night, the old woman came to Ms. Wang to thank her, whom she accused of telling a lie. The old woman said, "I'll tell you the truth. I'm an old fox in the mountains. 20 years ago, I had a relationship with the father of this child. So I couldn't bear the thought that his father had broken his offspring, and no one had laid him in the grave." Mr. Wang had such admiration for the old woman that by the time he wanted to ask her a few more words, she had disappeared. At the time, Ms. Wang's wife was a virtuous and believable woman who never ate groceries. "I packed a clean room at home for the Buddha of Guanyin. Because I didn't have a son, I burned incense every day. And the gods were so powerful that every time she had a dream, she was told to stay away from the house, so everything in the house was done by the gods." When Wang fell ill and became very ill, she moved her bed into the room and arranged for bedding in the interior, keeping the door shut all day as if waiting for someone. Ms. Wang was bored, but she didn't deepen her inquiry because she was so ill that she couldn't bear to hurt her. Ill for 2 years, Wang often screamed and kicked out others to sleep alone in the house. People listened, as if someone were talking to her, and there was no one quiet when they opened the door. She has no other worries in her illness. That is, she has a daughter who is only 14 years old and is not married, and she rushes to treat her daughter with dowry every day, and sends her daughter away from marriage. When her daughter got married, she had nothing to do, so she asked Moses to come to her bed, and held Wang's hand and said, "Today, we are going to farewell forever. When I first got sick, Bodhisattva told me that my life should die early, because my daughter had not married and my heart was broken. So I gave some medicine and delayed some time. Last year, Bodhisattva was returning to Nanhai, leaving her handmaiden, Mei, to serve me. I'm going to die today, and I'm not giving you a son. Bouncer, I love him. I'm afraid you'll marry a great daughter-in-law. Their mother and son have no home. Mei, a beautiful, gentle woman. You can marry her as a stepmother when I die." It turns out that Wang Muzhen has a concubine and a boy named Bauer. Ms. Wang considers her words absurd, saying, "You've always respected the gods. Isn't that insulting to the gods?" His wife said, "I've been serving Mei for over a year and I've been close to each other, and I've asked her to do so." Wang Muzhen asked, "Where is Xiao Mei?" His wife said, "Isn't she in the room?" Wang Muzhen just wanted to ask again. His wife died when her eyes closed. During the night, Ms. Wang waved for her wife, and was surprised to hear a crying voice in her room, suspicious of a ghost. When I asked the girls to come and open the door to see, there was a 28 woman in the room, weeping in her filial piety. Everyone thinks it's God. Kneel down and kneel down together. The woman put away her tears and helped everyone up. Ms. Wang looked at her with indifference, and the woman was just holding her head down. Wang told her, "If what my dead wife said is true, please go to the court immediately and accept the prayers of my sons and daughters. And if not, I will not dare to delude myself and avoid guilt." The woman walked out shy. "Get on the north cottage." Wang Ming moved the woman to the south. Wang Muzhen went first, and the woman also answered. She kneeled down and kowtowed in descending order of childhood and despair, and the woman received a dignified gift. Only when Wang Muzhen's concubine came to pay her respects, the woman came down to hold her. Since her wife's death, Ms. Wang's teenager has made her and her servants lazy and steal, leaving her family a long time apart. After today's visit, everyone stood very quietly on both sides. The woman said, I am grateful to my wife for her kindness, for remaining on earth and entrusting me with the chores, and you should reinvent yourselves. I've always been unfaithful to past mistakes, otherwise, don't say nobody cares about you. Everyone looked up and looked up. And the woman was like a picture of a guanyin, sometimes blown by the wind. Everyone was in awe of the woman's instruction, and they all said yes. The women just started arranging the funeral. Everything was in order. From then on, the big thing is the small thing, and she doesn't dare to let go as long as she asks. Women are rigorous in managing internal and external affairs. Even Ms. Wang had to tell her what to do before she did. Although they met several times a day, Mr. Wang did not dare speak quietly to her. Wang's funeral is over. Wang Muzin wants to become a relative, but she is afraid to say so. So she asks the small concubine to make a small gesture. The woman said, I am entrusted by my wife, and I am duty-bound, but marriage is a big deal. No sloppiness. Mr. Senior Wang, I'm very respectable, and I'll do whatever I have to ask him to do. At this time, Yushui Huang Taipu, who had resigned from his post, and was a good friend of Wang Muzin's parents, had a close contact with each other. Wang Muzin went to see Huang Taipu herself and told him the truth. Huang, also feeling strange, came to the king's house with him. The woman heard that Mrs. Huang was coming and rushed out to see her. When Huang Taipu met Mei, he was surprised to think she was a fairy and was humble to be rude. Then helped her get a nice dowry and went home with a wedding present. Mei gave him pillows and shoes, and the two grew closer as they did their parents-in-law. After the marriage, Wang Muzin always treated Mei as a god, and was serious when she made out with her. At times, she pressed Buddha about his living situation. Mei laughs and says, You're so stupid too. Where is a real god married to a vulgar man? Wang is still asking about Mei's life. Mei said, Don't bother asking questions. If you treat me like a god, you will support me sooner or later, and there will be no harm in nature. Mei's management servant was very kind and generous, and didn't smile and didn't speak. But when she saw her from a distance when she made the girls fight, she immediately quietly stopped squealing. Mei laughed and said to them, Do you still think I'm a god? I'm a god. It's actually Madame's cousin. When we were kids, my sister thought of me and asked Nanzhuang to send me. It's just that because I'm close to my brother-in-law every day. There's no doubt between men and women, so if it's God, lock me up in the house. Where is God? Still, people don't believe that the god's legend has been slowly dissipated since the days when they were there to watch her and watch her every move. But the old mischievous servants, Wang's scolding when he was alive had not been well educated. Now Mei has a word to say, and no one refuses to listen. They say, we don't know why, and we're not really afraid of her. But as soon as we see her face, we're soft. So we can't bear to go against her will. After Mei took charge of the household, for several years, the land was sprawled and more than 10,000 stones were stored in the warehouse. A few more years later, Ms. Wang's concubine gave birth to a girl and Ms. Mei to a boy. The boy was born with a red dot on his arm, hence his name, Xiao. On the full moon, Mei asked Mo to have a feast with Wang. Huang Taipu also gave a big congratulatory gift, but he himself was too old to come. And Mei sent two old women to invite him again, so Huang Taipu came to congratulate himself. Mei holds the child, shows the child's left arm, tells Huang why her name is Xiao, and asks for the name again and again. The red dot is Hai Hung, and the name can be added a word called Hai Hung. Laughs Mrs. Huang. Mei is happy. Thank you again. On this day, the sound of drumming filled the courtyard, with relatives, friends and family, as if in a market. Mrs. Huang stayed for 3 days before leaving. After Xin Hong's birthday, a group of wagons suddenly came to the door and said that they were picking up Mei to go to her mother's house. Mei has no family and friends for the past 10 years. How come she suddenly has a family? There was a lot of talk, and Mei didn't seem to hear anything. After grooming herself and holding the child in her arms, Wang promised to send her 20 to 30 miles away. There were no pedestrians left on the road. Mei stopped the car, asked Wang to get off, and said to Wang privately, Wang Lang, Wang Lang. Isn't it tragic that we met for a short time and stayed away for a long time? When Wang asked in panic what was going on, Mei said, "Who do you think I am?" Wang replied, "I don't know." Mei said, "In Jiangnan, have you ever rescued a dead criminal?" Wang said, "That's the thing. It was my mother who cried on the road," Mei said. "She appreciates your spirit and wants to repay you. Because your wife believes in Buddhism, let me pretend to be a god and make you a concubine in return. Now I'm glad I had this baby. I wish I had. I think you're going to have some luck with this child, and I'm afraid I won't be able to raise him there. So I'm going to take him back to my mother's house to get rid of her. You go back and remember, when someone dies in your family, you're screaming all over the West River in the morning. And you see sunflower lights, and you block the road and beg him, and you'll be spared the disaster." Wang Ying said. "Yes." Asked when Mei would come back, Mei said, "I'm not sure that you'll have to remember what I said for a long time." As we parted, I held the king's hands and exchanged tears. Then he boarded the car and left with a bang. Wang went home because he was so far from being seen. After 6 or 7 years, Mei never heard from him. Suddenly, the plague spread in the countryside, and many people died. One of Wang's women died after 3 days of illness, so Wang began to care when he remembered what Mei said when she walked away. He was drinking with his guests and fell asleep. When he woke up and heard the chicken, he rushed to the west embankment and saw the light flashing, as if it had just passed. He rushed to catch up, and was 100 steps away from the light, but the farther he went, the less he could see, and he returned home with deep regret. Within days, he fell ill and died. The royal family has a lot of scoundrels in it because Wang Muzhen is dead and bullies. Ms. Wang's crops and trees were openly felled, and the days of the royal family faded. 1 year apart, the baby's dead again, and the family's undecided. The scoundrels were also more aggressive, carving up the royal family's fields, taking their cattle and horses, and carving up the royal family's house. Because Ms. Wang's concubine still lives there, they gathered several people and sold her to others. The concubine couldn't leave her little girl, and the mother and daughter were crying and crying. I heard a saloon coming from outside the gate at a time of great danger. As you can see, Mei led her son out of the car. Mei looked around and saw so many people. She said, "Who are these people?" The concubine told her everything, crying. When Mei changed her face, she called someone and told them to lock the door. The scoundrels want to resist, but their limbs are weak and their strength is gone. Mei asked them to tie each one to the corridor pillars and give them 3 bowls of porridge a day. The old servant was sent to tell Mrs. Huang, and then she came to the house to cry. "It's a few days too. I was going to come back last month, and I was having a few days delay when my mother got sick. That's why I'm here today," Mei said to concubine after crying. "Suddenly we're in ruins. I asked the old women to tell them that they were robbed by scoundrels, and Mei lamented it even more. The next day, the girls heard that Mei had returned, and they all escaped. The master and the servant met, and they didn't cry. The barbarians on the pillars all complained that Mei's son was not Mo's flesh and blood, and Mei did not argue with them. Later, Huang Taipu arrives, and Mei's son greets him. Mr. Huang took the boy's arms, rolled up the sleeves of his left arm, and called everyone to see that the portmoles were clear, which proved that the boy was indeed a descendant of Wang Muzhen. Then he took the missing items, checked them out, registered them, and took them to the county officer himself. The county officials arrested the scoundrels, beat the 40 board each, and strictly tracked down the whereabouts of the items. In a few days, the fields, cows and horses were all returned to the Wang family. "We're done here. Huang Taipu's coming home. I'm not the man of the world, uncle. You know that," Mei said as she led her son to his knees and kowtowed. "I've entrusted this child to your uncle. As long as I have a breath, I will try to take care of him, Mr. Huang said. After Mr. Huang left, Mei arranged everything and left the children in the care of her concubine. She prepared her own wine and offerings and went to Wang's grave to visit the grave. Half a day's work didn't return. People went to see the offerings, and Mei was gone.
Alright, this story has come to an end. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up. Thank you.